Hey, good morning, good afternoon, welcome. My name is Mike. I am your host today. This is the Leadership Toolkit, as you know, your definitive leadership growth podcast. So each week I have the opportunity to bring amazing guests on from all over the nation, all over the world, really, and have conversations. We have these awesome conversations so that we discuss their successes. Sometimes we discuss failures, we discuss roadblocks, we discuss what things will allow you to cut through the noise and get going. And today is no different. I have got an amazing guest for us today. Jones Loflin. He's been speaking to audiences all around the world for over 32 years, helping leaders and organizations whose people are struggling with too much to do, too many distractions, too little time. Does that sound familiar? Because I know it sounds familiar to me. In fact, I might have him be coaching me on the show today, but he helps you break through that noise. He has a really good storytelling style, super easy to speak to, offers simple analogies and audience interaction in his speaking. And I'm sure today will be no different here on the show, on the podcast. So welcome, Jones, to the Leadership Toolkit. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Mike, it's just it's a real delight having listened to some of your episodes and reading, some of the stuff that you do. I just appreciate how, you and I intersect. I wrote a book called Always Growing, which is leading with a gardener's mindset. And your tagline is growing yourself and the people around you. So we had to get together at some point.
It was inevitable. So welcome. And if you would do me a favor and just share a little bit of your background, Jones. Sure. Where do you come from? Yeah. What are you doing now? How did you get there? What's the leadership and management? Love to hear about every facet of you in business and, some personal life if you like too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. What I do, I've been a professional speaker and trainer for 31 years around the topics of leadership, time management, and change. My everything I do, my focus is helping people make the best choices with their time so they can thrive, because it's not about managing your time. It's about managing your choices every day. I have some books to my credit: Juggling Elephants, Always Growing, Focused as a Bee. I write all of those in a story form because I think people like to get connected emotionally with the content. And then as the ideas pop out, they just stick with people more often. As far as other things about me, I have been a coach since 2017, work with clients around the same topics that I speak on. In fact, that's how it started, was my audiences, people would come to me and say, hey, do you do coaching? And I love that opportunity to work one-on-one or with a small group of people, because I really believe that people have the answers in them. We just need to put them in an environment and ask them the right questions to help them take that next step to improvement. Now, that's what I do. Who I am is the husband to Lisa, my bride of 35 years. I have two amazing daughters, one really cool son-in-law with another really cool son-in-law coming on board in March of next year. The really important things about me, my favorite word is flummoxed. And flummoxed. Yeah. When you just don't know what else to say, you just go, oh, I'm flummoxed. And so it just kind of, helps me to vent, I guess. And one of my favorite things to do is what we're doing today over a tasty cup of in the morning decaf coffee. At this time of day, it's warm lemon water. It's just having good conversation, because I think people don't do that like they used to.
100% agree. 100% agree. It's what's so crazy is we have more ways to connect, but because I think everybody tries to choose every way to connect, like, well, we got to be connected on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and I watch the podcast and I do this, and I can call somebody on the phone and I can FaceTime them, and there's so many ways to connect. In my opinion, you correct me if you disagree, Jones, but it's like there's so many connection opportunities, and in ways we've never been more disconnected, because we never stop as a whole. I shouldn't say never. So many people will not often stop and just sit and have a conversation like this and learn from somebody and grow and listen to your experiences or my experiences and so forth. So I absolutely love that. So I'm curious, why flummoxed?
I just start there. Well, I just remember hearing somebody say it at a meeting one night, and we was a situation where we just couldn't make any direction or traction, and we just didn't know what to do. And somebody says, "I'm just flummoxed," and I thought, what a cool word. So that's where I'm sorry, you expect some deeper meaning, but that's not.
Oh, well, I'm going to key in on that for a second, because so often as leaders, as managers, as business people, entrepreneurs, oftentimes I feel like we are looking for this deeper meaning. Like we'll have this
Mm,
conversation and people are like, well, I need to know like the root of it. And so often, especially when we're mentoring somebody,
mm,
or we have staff members, that they think there's this magical, like deep, long drawn out process of um, items that they have to do in order to accomplish something and so forth. And one of
right.
the things that you just said, I think, is beautiful. Sometimes there's no deeper meaning. It's just simple. It's
Yeah.
just surface,
Yeah.
and here it is.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that you started with here, and I'd like to dive right into
Mhm.
this, and I put it in the notes. You said, what I really do is I help people manage choices because you can't manage time.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
so often in business, we hear, well, time management. Well, hey, we got to be able to multitask and do all these things, but we got to be able to manage our time.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
diving right in here, what are a few things? What are some tools, maybe two, three things? Can you dive into that statement? What's the difference between time management and choice management? And how can we start to manage our choices better versus managing our time better?
sure, sure. I've got lots of different analogies I could use or examples. I'm
Sure.
gonna use the one from my latest book, Focused as a Bee, where we talk about people being busy. People fill their calendars, they fill their schedules with activity, but they aren't necessarily aligned that activity with the outcomes they want, the goals and priorities. We start our day by looking at the first text that we have, or we scroll social media, and that becomes some of our urgent things that we're thinking about or beginning to work on. We don't plan our day, so we're responding to the urgent all day instead of saying, okay, this is how I would like for my day to go. It's not going to go perfectly. Things are going to
Mhm.
happen, but we don't even start by saying, this is what a successful day would look like for me. Now, that's busy. We use the term in the book, and Focused as a Bee, is that you need to be focused. And focused, the definition is the intentional direction of your time and energy toward what matters most. And there's three parts there: intentional direction, time and energy, and what matters most. And just to give you an example, Mike, sometimes when I'm coaching or even in a presentation, I might ask a group, I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are your activities, let's say at work, let's just take one area, how aligned are your activities at work with the outcomes you want from work, or that you want your team to have from work? On a scale of 1 to 10, I am yet to have anybody tell me a 10.
Really?
Most of the time people are saying, well, it's about a 6 or about a 7. And I'll say, great, that's good. Now, what would be different if it were a 9? Or if you were saying, Jones, it's a 10 right now. And it's amazing how they can very quickly tell me some things they would be doing differently, or some different ways they would be working with their team. And then it becomes that coaching journey, or just having good conversation about, okay, how could you make that happen? What are the steps you could take? Because remember, I said earlier, I think people know what they need to do.
Mhm.
They just don't know how to take that next step.
Absolutely. So I don't know which question I want to ask you next, because there's a couple of things that well, I joke with people, and I said to you beforehand, I said I feel like often my audience knows the top of my head, so that's part of why I put you on the screen as I sit here like this and take notes. So there's a few things. One, I always like to recap also, and I
Mhm.
think this is one of those things that I'd recommend if you're listening to the show or you're watching the show wherever you're at. This is one of those pieces to write down. Like when you were saying, hey, what defines a good day?
Mm.
It's not being busy, it's being focused. And you broke that down to three things. You said it's intentional direction,
Mhm.
where you're spending your time and
Mhm.
energy, and it's on the things that matter most.
Mhm.
And then fast forward to that. And so write that down if you're listening to the show, because I think that's really valuable. I have a friend of mine here locally, actually the CEO of our local Better Business Bureau, and I
Mhm.
remember him saying one of the things, and you might appreciate this. We were talking about so often now you'll ask people, "Hey, how's everything going? Like, what's going on with you? How is everything?" And so often we respond, "Oh my gosh, I'm so busy."
Mhm. Mhm.
And he said, he goes, he says, I'm going to point this out, and I got to give him credit. Jonathan Liebert,
Sure.
shout out to you.
Sure.
He says, busy is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like, it's true. So I love the fact that you're saying, hey, it's not just about being busy during the day and doing this, but being focused and being clear on those directions.
Mhm.
One of the things that you pointed out too, and you were talking about like, hey, what are the activities you're engaging in versus the outcomes?
Mhm.
Do you find that those are the activities that people are engaging in? Is that because people are left to like their own devices? They're saying, oh, well, I'm going to go and check my email, or I'm going to start scrolling, or I'm going to start doing these things, or because somebody else in the business, let's say a boss, a leader, a manager, is giving direction that they don't have clarity in what it is that you're supposed to be doing.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And the answer, really complex answer, is yes. Because I think it's both. It's not,
Okay.
and I think on any given day, it can be a balance of one or the other, or both. Because I think there are those times that we are left to our own devices. We don't have our own clarity about how we should be, approaching our work or what we should be doing. We don't have the physical, mental, or emotional energy to engage in the right task at the right moment. So I think you got that side. Then you also have that side where because leaders, managers, supervisors are busy, shall we say, they got a lot of activity.
Sure.
They may communicate just enough to someone, and that they say, does that make sense? Just like you did me a moment ago. And you're thinking, well, if I don't say yes, gosh, I can tell he's in a hurry or she's in a hurry, and they may not want to explain it. I don't want to look like I don't understand it. So I'm just going to nod my head. Yeah, I got it. And then they walk away and you're like, I don't got it. But yeah, I think there's just so much there. I don't think there's any one silver bullet or one magic thing that we can tweak or change that all of a sudden somebody would become, ultimately productive, or, getting a 10 on aligning their outcomes. I think it's really a part of that awareness of what is limiting me from working on the things that are the highest priority in a way that's efficient and effective.
So have you been through that with people, and you said, hey, what's limiting you to do this? And what are some common answers you get? I'm
Sure.
just curious.
Your listeners are not going to be surprised. One of the things that people always throw under the bus are meetings.
I
I
do
can
love a
just,
good meeting.
that's where you and I diverge, right?
I'm kidding.
I know
I'm
you're
kidding.
kidding. But I mean, that's the thing that I hear probably most often is just the idea of, so much activity around meetings and longer than they should be, back-to-back meetings, all of those things that come under the meeting heading.
Mhm.
The other thing that I find with individuals sometimes is they just are so vague about their overload, or they have so much going on. Because I'll ask people sometime, they'll say, "Yeah, I'm just so busy." I'm like, "Well, what are you busy with, or what's going on?" And they'll just go, "Everything." Well, they won't get specific, and that's where a coach, a good friend, a mentor, a colleague at work, I think, can be so valuable in pressure testing a little bit and say, "Give me a couple things that are weighing you down right now," because then that forces them to focus on what is most limiting their ability to get for lack of a better word, the right work done. And then, if they're open to it, you can say, wonder what's a small way you could start doing something differently. What's a, BJ Fogg, tiny habit. What's something small you could start doing differently to address that? I mean, sure, we would all, okay, I'm gonna probably upset some of your listeners at this point. We all want that magic peel, if you will. A few years ago, I was doing some work for GNC, for the company, there.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, what's the number one thing you get asked for when people come into your stores? And they said, people come in and say, I want a peel to lose weight, and I don't want to exercise. Now, of course, we have solutions to that these days, but
Sure.
then we did. But that's what we want. I'm struggling with how to work more effectively with my manager, and say, okay, well, let's look at some. And they're like, but I need something right now. It's like,
but I don't want to
Did-
talk to my manager.
Exactly. Yes. I want to text them and say, are we good or something? But yeah, it's just, I think that's the other side of it, is that we have to be patient. We didn't get overwhelmed overnight. We didn't get confused overnight, and it's going to take a while to work through those things and
Sure.
and to get back to that place of productivity and impact.
So, and what I think this is all excellent. One of the things that you said a few minutes ago, and you had commented, you'd made this comment earlier, and I'm going to come back to this
Ooh.
because then you were saying, well, there's no silver bullet as far
Mhm.
as the aligning activities and so forth.
Mhm.
But prior to that, one of the things that I wrote down was there are a lot of people that don't plan their day. You said, hey, plan your day. To me, I do think that is a little bit of a silver bullet, because I think that is a bit of a lost art when it comes to leaders, certainly
Mhm.
when it comes to staff members. So if you're somebody that's a staff member listening right now, maybe you have aspirations for leadership, maybe you are leading or managing people. I think it would be worthwhile, and I'm picking up on what you said, Jones.
Mhm.
It'd
Mhm.
be worthwhile the first 10 minutes of somebody's day. Now, I always my process was I would try to start planning my day the night before. When I go
Yeah.
home, you
Yeah.
you do that. And a lot of people that are in leadership roles, like, that's a good practice to adopt. But what about the first 10 or 15 minutes of your staff members' day? If you're leading people, have them sit down and actually write things down, not text them to themselves, not come up with a task list that they can delete off of their computer, but actually physically write down. I've already got a page worth of notes here. Say, hey, the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes of our day, here's what I want to do. I want you to plan out what your day is going to look like.
Mhm.
What are the activities that you're going to engage
Mhm.
in so that you can accomplish whatever it is?
Oh, music to my ears, Mike. I mean, because it has gotten so easy just to think we know what it is that we want to work on. In one of my books, Juggling, we talk about managing your work and life like a circus. And I give an example when I'm talking to people. I say, imagine if you had decided to go to the circus and you're walking across the parking lot into the arena, and here stands the ringmaster with
Mhm.
all of the acts that are going to be performing that night. And the ringmaster says something like, okay, I know I want you first, your team to go first, but the rest of you, I don't know exactly when you fit into the performance tonight. So just hang out here, and I'll
Well,
come get you when this other act is done. And you're laughing, Mike, because how many people actually do their day that way? They know that one
everybody.
thing, they know that dumpster that they got to get done, but they haven't looked ahead and go, okay, when I'm finished with that, what does it make sense for me to be working on? What are the, again, going back to the outcomes, what are the activities I should have in my day based on the outcomes I want? And so you're exactly right. Taking that moment, that time at the beginning of the day to say, okay, this is a dumpster fire I got to deal with this morning.
Mhm.
And what am I going to do beyond that? What are my opportunities? And going back to the meetings thing, I work with lots of people who talk about, yeah, Jones, I only have, 5 or 10 minutes between meetings, so I'm checking email, blah, blah, blah. And it's fascinating how if I say to them, okay, let's take some time to talk about how you can meaningfully use those 5 minutes. What could you meaningfully do if you planned ahead and knew when this meeting's over, you got 5 or 10 minutes for the next one? What could you meaningfully do in that 5 to 10 minutes? And it's fascinating how their answers are very different. I'll go back to Hiram Smith, the developer of the Franklin Planner, which
Mhm.
I'm old enough to remember when I used to carry that big brown buddy
Yep.
under my arm. And he said, if you have 3 minutes, take one to plan the other 2. It goes back to that intentionality of using that time, whatever time that is, wisely. And as I'll say to your listeners, that doesn't end with the workday either.
Absolutely.
If leaders are going to be their best for their team, they got to be investing in themselves after work. They've got to be doing those things that bring them joy, that are fulfilling to them, that renew their physical, mental, emotional energy, so they can show up well for their team tomorrow.
Well, and in the meantime, and I've heard it said before, I was at a conference, I want to say it was 2006, and I have never forgotten this statement.
Mm.
The speaker was saying, he says, you cannot show up and plan to give 100% at work and then show up at home and expect to give less than that. It's not fair to your family, and it's not fair to the people around you. And I was like,
Right. Wait. Write that down, listeners.
Yeah.
Write that down.
Yeah, because it's like that. And I that's one of those, I wish I could take credit for it, but it was so impactful to me. And I will tell you, it's almost 20 years ago. And I've never forgotten that, because we do, especially those type A people, people that are tuned in and listen to this podcast. You're leading, you're managing people, you have aspirations. I want to be a good employee, or whatever all of that looks like. If someone's taking the time to tune into a show like this, it's because they want to grow and they want to move. And it is, that's one of those statements that it just smacks you right in the face and says, okay, well, yeah, I can't give 100% trying to grow and give it all at work and doing those things and accomplish all the activities and win what the manager told me to do, and then show up at home and give less than that, because that's a fail. And I love a few of the things that you said, like talking about intentionality. I want to key in, and I still want to go back to the plan your day thing too, because I got some thoughts. I'll say this one tidbit when we're talking about planning your day too. Let's say you engaged in that activity, and I just am coming up with this on the fly, and you had your staff members, hey, spend your first 10 minutes, give me a plan of your day. Then as a leader, you should take, and this isn't like, I don't want to create a micromanagement culture.
Right.
But as a leader, take 2 minutes to read over their 10-minute plan, because it gives you an idea of what they're doing. It gives you clarity, and then let them have the autonomy to go do it. Hey, you said you were going to do those things. Cool. Go do that. Something that's come up several times. And I want to key on this because I think it is very important. We're talking about, this is the Leadership Toolkit, and I want to pull this tool out of the toolbox right now.
Yes.
Meetings are necessary. Meetings need to be planned. Meetings are not a space for you to platform and just go up and talk about whatever the crap. And it drives me insane, because I think so often, like when you're saying, hey, I got 5 minutes between meetings. Meetings should be like, I'm going to tell them what I'm going to tell them. Then I'm going to tell them, then I'm going to tell them what I told them. And then I'm going to move on. Right. And so often we've all heard it said, well, that meeting could have been an email. Yeah. And if that's the case, like, what is the purpose? What is the goal of the meeting? Is by you as a leader, because you're the one that's calling that meeting together, or maybe someone in your leadership. What's the goal and the outcome of that too? Is it to have an opportunity? So often, at least in my experience, maybe we're bringing people together from different departments so that you can have some diversity of opinion, some community building, be able to see what somebody else is doing. But you as the moderator, as the leader, as the person that's running that meeting, you got to go in with a plan. You can't just say, oh, hey, I've got this concept and then I'm going to wing it. And I see a lot of people in leadership roles that do that. They say, well, we got to have a meeting to accomplish this goal. Then you don't go in with your own set of ideas or processes for that to help direct where the meeting is headed.
Right. Absolutely. Because it certainly doesn't get engagement. It doesn't get the ideas from the people who probably are at the front line more so than you, who could give you the suggestions that could really make whatever it is you're working on more effective. What is it? Annie Duke says, if you want to know people's opinions, stop infecting them with what you think.
Absolutely. A couple of things. So I always get ahead of myself. We're halfway through the show here. A couple items. If you're listening to the show, if you're watching the show, I'm gonna put this on the show on the screen. I think I had this up at least once earlier. If you want to connect with Jones, which you should,
Thank you.
yes, you're phenomenal, man. It's been a great conversation so far, and I'm excited on where we're headed. If you want to connect with Jones, LinkedIn is one way you can do it. LinkedIn.com/in/Jones Loflin. It's JONESLOFLIN. Also, you can check out jonesloflin.com. So it's same spelling, JONESLOFLIN.com, for coaching and resources, more connect with, you have links to your books and the items that you've authored. They can, looks like, initiate a conversation to book you to speak and so forth. So definitely connect in those ways. Speaking of books, I want to know, because your most recent book, I'll flash it on the, I'll put you on the screen.
I can do it. There you go. It's right there.
There you go. Busy as a bee. Your most recent book, and you wrote that's the most recent one that you've written, correct?
Absolutely.
Then you've written several. And that was co-authored with your daughter.
Yep.
So how was that, authoring a book with your daughter? First off, can you dive into, sort of what's the premise of the book? What's the book about? How did you guys arrive there? what led you to write it with your daughter,
Mhm.
and how was it writing with your daughter? I know that's a whole bunch to unpack, but I would love
All
to
right.
hear.
Mike, I know you're thorough, and so you will catch me if I don't answer any of those questions. You just ask me. The background is in 2019, my daughter Sydney and I were given a hive of bees, and we worked with them that first year. Loved the experience. Lost the bees, did not go well,
Okay.
and so we've continued to be beekeepers for years. And I don't know, along about 2021, maybe 2022, we started talking about how amazed we were by the bees and how productive they were and how they got things done. And so we started, joking with each other about some of the things. Well, you need to do that like the bees do it, or hey, different things. And so then we started playing around with the idea of perhaps writing a book. I mean, I had authored some other books prior to Focused as a Bee. Sydney had kind of aspired to want to write a book at some point. She's very creative. And so we started talking about some of the principles that would be in the book based on our experience in beekeeping. And so eventually we started developing this manuscript. Now that was an experience within itself. You've got maybe a 19-year-old and then a 56-year-old, I think, trying to figure out how to work together. Reading styles are different, writing styles are different. And so we tried the initial thing of we kind of outlined it. I would write a chapter, then she would start to write a chapter. After about 4 chapters, we realized that was a train wreck because it wasn't consistent. And the perspectives were different. So what happened was that I took the lead in writing. I mean, it's my history. Sydney was the creative, and she would share some of her experiences and say, well, Alicia and I would have done it differently, because the story is an analogy. It's a metaphor. It's a future telling of what the life of Sydney and her best friend Alicia would have looked like had Alicia survived. Unfortunately, Sydney lost her best friend Alicia several years ago, and so this book is also a tribute to their friendship and to their life. But it's a really fun journey through their friendship. And Alicia was a lover of bees, and her family actually gave us her beehive, and that's how we got started. And so the experience was just once in a lifetime, Mike, as you can imagine, as a parent.
Sure.
And it's something that, I'm not at the end of my career by any means, but it certainly is one of the pinnacles of my career to be able to have this book that I wrote with my daughter that has not only, I think, solid business principles on how to help people stay focused, but is also a tribute to the value of friendship and to the life of Alicia Greer, who really did have an amazing impact while she was here.
That's awesome. And I think I said busy as a bee, but it's focused as a bee. It's busy and then crossed out.
That's right. That's okay. That's no worries.
Just to make sure. So if you're shopping for it, anyone, it's focused as a bee. So, and one of the things that you said, hey, is it's an analogy, but it's a business book.
Right.
What are the principles you lean into in that book?
Sure. The big principle we lean into in the book is that we have to give ourselves permission to focus, because we naturally give ourselves permission to be distracted. Case in point, you've got some listeners who are just riveted by our conversation, Mike. And as they are doing that, they also have their phone notifications turned on. They have their email notifications turned on. And so they have given themselves permission to be distracted, because while you did say something amazing a moment ago, like, wait, I just got an email from somebody. They missed it, in that moment. So we naturally give ourselves permission to be distracted. So we have to be intentional. Remember that definition, the intentional direction of your time and energy towards what matters most. So we got to give ourselves permission. So the book then breaks it down. How do we focus using the story of Sydney and her journey as a professional in the workplace? 6 permissions. And those permissions are, see if I can still get them all right.
Okay,
It's late in the day here, but it's permission to prioritize, permission to plan, permission to be unavailable, permission to recharge, permission to change, and permission to be consistent. And our value proposition to our readers is that if you will use those 6 permissions, different ones at different times, rarely do you need to use all 6, but if you will be more intentional, use those permissions or other ones. Sydney, when we were writing the book, fun moment, I know I'm rambling on, but a fun moment.
I love it.
Sydney called me one day and she goes, Dad, I've got another permission for our book. I'm like, sorry, we can only have 6 because that's how many sides a honeycomb cell has. We can't have have 7. And she goes, no, 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 no. She says, but one that I'm using. I said, well, tell me more. She goes, I'm sitting here having to write this paper. She's an undergraduate at the time.
Okay.
And she said, I'm just hitting a block because I know the expectations for this paper are just, for me, I've got high expectations. I know the professor has high expectations and I just can't get it done. She says, I just gave myself permission to be mediocre. And she said, when I did, I'm like, okay, it can be mediocre. And she wrote it. Now, did she go back and, edit it and all? Sure. But just giving herself that permission to say, you know what? I don't have to have it excellent the first time revolutionized her thinking and allowed her to do the task, to get it done. So that's a little overview of the book and the principles.
No, that's fantastic. And I appreciate that you explained that, hey, there's 6 sides of the honeycomb, so there's got to be 6. And yet I want to recap these to make sure that I've got them right, because I want to include this in the show notes. You said permission to prioritize, permission to plan.
Well, let's go back. Let's go and jump in just a little bit into each one.
Yeah, sure.
If it's okay. And so, so I'm going to try to give it 2 cents.
Prioritize is 1.
If everything is a priority, nothing's a priority.
Yes.
Everything in your day doesn't deserve equal time. Okay. So that's the first one. Next one. See if you got the second one.
Well, and
you can't comment on my comment.
I got to comment on the comment because here's the thing. Here's the hard part. And this is going to be a hard pill to swallow when you're saying everything in your day doesn't deserve equal time. That means not every person in your day deserves equal time.
Write that down, listeners. Write that down. Yes, absolutely.
So number 2 is permission to plan.
Sure. We talked about it. See, we've already done this one, is that, you've got to plan for your day and how you want it to go, or because if you don't, then you're just open to whatever distraction or whatever shiny object comes along.
Number 3, I love this one. And I want to hear your comment on this. Permission to be unavailable.
Yeah, it's my favorite one. It's the one I struggle with the most. I think that's why I like it the most, because I'm my own lifelong project in this. Yeah. There's 3 things that I think we have to be unavailable to if we're going to focus and get the most important work done. The first one is to that internal noise. The noise in our head, the inner critic, the self-doubt, the unplanned. If you've got a lot of stuff, if you're not planning, then you got all these unclosed loops, open loops. I knew I'd get it right in a moment. Open loops going on in your head about, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need that. All that noise, you can't focus on the person if you're a leader who's in front of you, because you're holding on to all that stuff in your brain. So internal noise. The second one is external environment. And we know what that is. That's what you hear. It's what you see. Are you in an environment that encourages focus, or is it encourages distraction? The third one, listeners are going to love this one: expectations of others. Leaders and managers. I talk to leaders and managers who say, yeah, I have to be available to my people all the time. And I'm like, really? So you're never unavailable to them, so you can be available to your deeper thoughts and your planning and the opportunity to look longer term, because you're so available to them, and they kind of look at me like, I don't like you anymore, Jones. But it's just so important to be unavailable to being expected to. I'm readily available to everybody around me all the time, because then you don't get any of that other work done that's critical to the success of the team. The number one thing I hear from leaders is, I don't have time to strategize. I don't have time to think longer term. And you got to be unavailable to other people if you're going to go up on the hill, or whatever you call it, to think about those things.
No, I that's really, really powerful. And I think more people need to make time to. I love the fact when you're talking about. I'm going to comment on your comment again. We'll get through this eventually, but when you're saying, hey, the comment you hear is, well, I got to be available to my people all the time. Yep. The reality is, if you constantly have to be available to your people to be making the decisions with them or for them, and this will sting, but you're not a very good leader.
Absolutely.
Part of your goal as a leader is you're supposed to be growing people, and it's okay to allow them the autonomy to make their own mistakes.
Yes.
And because the reality is, if you think about it, if you're leading anybody and you're tuned in and listening to this podcast, part of the reason that you got to where you were was you got punched in the mouth and you made your own mistakes. And you're like, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to duck into the uppercut. I'm going to move to the side. Right. And so I think that's one of those things that it can sting when you hear that, because a lot of people are, and I've the reason I know this is because I have lived it. I was an
Yeah.
expert at this, right?
Sure.
And it's like you have to, yeah, you have to allow people their own. You have to make available to them their own failures.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
four, and this one I had to come back to. So I think I got this right. You said permission to recharge.
You got it, brother.
Okay.
Absolutely. Here's a fun fact. The book's about bees. In a healthy beehive, honeybee
Mhm.
hive, bees take an average of 40 naps per day.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to take 40 naps
There
a
you
day.
go. Yeah. Foraging bees, the bees that are doing the most work, they take 50 naps per day, and they're micro, they're millisecond kind of things. But the reason they do that is because they want to be ready for the next moment, the next job, the next task. Think about if you're go back to your example earlier. If you're a leader and you are back to back to back meetings and back to back, meeting with people, and you never have that, give yourself permission to recharge. Are you your best in the meeting? Are you your best when you're having that conversation with that team member who really needs you to be fully present? Answer is no. You
Right.
got to give yourself the opportunity to rest, physical, mental, emotional, so that you can recharge those batteries. So when that crisis hits, you are able to best lead, direct, guide, manage your team and the organization to that outcome that's most important.
Love it. And number 5 was permission to change.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's not working, we hold on to things too often, whether it's routines or habits, because it's just easy to do them. And if we change, we might not be good at doing something different. We don't know the outcome, but giving yourself permission to say, I'm going to try something differently today. Whether as a leader, it's how I approach a team member. It's a question I ask them or the way I position the question. But giving yourself permission to change if what you're doing is not working. So that's permission.
I think that one can be hard so often because oftentimes the thing we need to change from was our idea. And it's like, no, but it was a great idea. Well, it might have been at the time, but it's not anymore.
It's not
I
anymore.
mean, I can say from my own experience, even coming up with, like branding for companies or ideas of, oh, hey, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to start this new blog site or past iterations of my podcast. Like I thought it was the best thing ever. And then you do so many episodes and I think to myself, but it was like the best thing ever. And I can't let go of it because of like the name. Right. Yeah. But the reality is sometimes people don't understand the name. And if they don't understand the thing that's at the core, you're never going to see the fullest amount of success that you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then number 6, you said was permission to be consistent. And I think that's huge.
Well, it seems so simple, but it is that, going back to the bees for a moment, that's what makes bees successful. That's what makes the hive thrive, is that every bee is doing its one job for that day or that season. It's doing it every day. When the temperature reaches a certain point, the foragers are out of the hive. When the temperature starts getting lower or the sun starts going down, the bees are coming back in. They're so consistent in the work they do. How many times, Mike, have you talked to someone who's manager, supervisor? They say, I just don't know what to expect when she walks in the door. I just don't know how it's going to land when I say this or how I work with them. That consistency is so critical for all of us, but I think it's especially critical for leaders so that people know how to work with us and approach us and work with us effectively.
Well, that way they know what they're getting. I think that's one of those, I mean, everything in life. And I think it's very easy to fall out of consistency, but it's like I heard Tony Robbins say this years ago. He says, you don't go to the gym one time and then you go, whew, now that I'm in shape, I'm so glad that's done.
Yes. Yes.
Right? It takes those repetitive tasks of, okay. And sometimes they're not enjoyable. Like I personally, as I get older, I don't enjoy going to the gym. I'll just say it.
Yep. Me too.
Now the parts that I do enjoy going to the gym is I like the way that I feel afterwards. Cause I'm like, okay, I did the thing. Generally my wife and I go to the gym together. So that's time together, spent together and so forth. But if it was just me going and doing the thing, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know how long I could carry on. So sometimes being consistent, and I'm diving into this one a little bit with you, Jones, is being consistent. You got to find those exciting points. You got to find the good points in the thing that is mundane or the thing that is not always the most enjoyable, because you're more in love with what the greater outcome is
Yes.
than the activity that has to get you there.
Well said. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I worked in sales for a really, really long time. And that was one of the
Mhm.
things I remember a trainer one time saying. He goes, "Hey, the people that are the most successful in sales are the ones that will repeat the daily mundane tasks that are not enjoyable, because that gets you to the things that are enjoyable. That get you to the
Mm.
sales, that get you to the income, that get you to connecting with
Mhm.
people. But leading up to that, it's like, okay, well, I got to make 50 phone calls or 100 phone calls or
Mhm.
whatever that looks like, right? I have to go and sign a bunch of thank you cards. I got to do like all these little sort of mundane activities,
Mhm.
but they all lead to something greater. And so it's like that goes back to our planning your day. Make time for those things,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah, and then you can, because in a coaching environment, you can say to yourself, what will you have if you follow your plan as much as possible? You get, granted, things are going to happen. What will you have? And people say things like contentment, peace of mind. And I'm like, what's that worth to you? And of course, when you stop them long enough for them to think about that, they go, yeah, that's just really important to me. Great. Now, what are the steps we can take to make it happen? I just think it's so important. So you're right. Consistency is just, we know that. We know that.
Mhm.
There's nothing in any of my books that isn't already out there. It's just that hopefully it's been presented in a way, just like permission to recharge. 40 naps, bees take 40 naps a day. People go, ooh, and then they hear why and they go, well, yeah, I should take more moments to recharge
Yeah.
in that way.
So I'm curious too, because as you coach people one-on-one, you coach leaders, you coach managers, and we've been through a bunch of these different pieces. I'm curious because I think the best leaders in business are good coaches for their people also.
Mhm. Mhm.
So one thing I'd like people to take with them today, what are maybe two or three actionable items, Jones, that when you go in to coach somebody, you go in at an executive level or a management level, to a company or to an individual.
Sure.
What are some, either a couple or three processes that you go through personally, maybe a couple or three questions that you would ask to help to lay a foundation of, hey, this is going to be our coaching relationship, and here's some things that I want to get out of you.
Yeah. Wow. Um, I think for me, because I'm gonna think I'm gonna answer the question, but you can
Yeah,
sharpen
well,
me if I
here I'll
don't.
say it.
But
I'll say where do you start? Like, what's
yeah,
the
we're just
foundation
okay.
of that
Okay,
relationship?
yeah, thank you. I got it. Got it. Well, the foundation of the relationship from a coaching standpoint, I'm gonna take
Yeah.
coaching and then content. Let's do that. Coaching and content.
Okay.
The coaching side of things, first of all, it has to be confidential. Anytime anybody is talking about personal growth, professional growth, they need to be able to be in a safe place where they can talk about their frustrations and in a way that they're not filtering it through worrying about what, this might get out or someone might say. So I think that's the first thing. They be in a psychologically safe place to talk through their challenges and their issues. The second thing is, I think you have to, as a coach, you got to ask them those deeper questions. Sometimes leaders aren't asked those; they're expected to ask those of others, and I think it's really critical for leaders to be challenged and to ask those deeper questions when they say, whatever, and you say, "Well, tell me more about that," or "What would that look like? What do you see as the barriers? How have you contributed to this dysfunction?" But really helping them to think on a deeper level. And then I think the third piece on the coaching side is that action plan. That I love the whole focus of what you do, Mike. Tools for your toolbox, your toolkit is what are some tangible steps you can take to improve as a leader. I think that those are the three elements that are critical. Now, to the content side, I love frameworks. I have for years. I think I have all my life, just because people, I think, can gravitate to that. I teach people to lead with the mindset of a gardener. It's all about growing yourself, growing your team, and you'll grow the business. I mean, and that's just the three key elements of that. So if you are looking at leadership from the viewpoint of a gardener, then you are looking at possibilities. You're looking at creating. The four words: grow, cultivate, prune, and harvest. Leaders are all about growing. That's creating the environment where you and others can thrive. Cultivate is those consistent processes, the daily check-ins, the effective ones. It's managing meetings well and a whole ton of other things we won't have time to talk about today. But
Sure.
it's that consistency, goes back to that same word. Pruning is the self-awareness for leaders to recognize what they're doing that's limiting their ability to be effective. Because I'll ask leaders sometimes, where do you need to cut back so you can grow forward? Where do you need to spend less time and energy so that you can invest more in your own development and the development of your team? And then harvest is all about not just the winning the goal or achieving the outcome. Harvest is about like a good gardener would. Good gardener goes in the garden every day and they're looking around. They're seeing what's growing. And you know what? They're going to tell everybody when they see something growing. Oh, guess what? The cucumbers are 6 inches longer today than they were yesterday. Look, there's tomatoes on the vine. It won't be long till it's time to harvest those potatoes. They're so positive about seeing possibility. And I think good leaders, effective leaders, find that in what's going on with their team and those individual team members versus always focusing on the negative. I know that was a lot, so I'll let you break it down.
No, I love it. There is so much goodness in all of this, Jones. And man, I can't tell you thank you enough for everything that you're sharing today. Because I always enjoy having these one-on-one conversations. Like we were saying, hey, make time to connect.
Yeah.
And I've been so blessed to connect with great people, great leaders and authors and speakers and just like you. And I sit here and I know that if I have the opportunity to learn something new, I know that my audience and other people there are. And I think it's just great. And I've got I'm up to about 2.5 pages of notes. So I'll break it down to a smaller description and so forth. But I do love the fact, and I think this applies to if you're looking for a coach, you kind of gave a framework. And if you are the one doing the coaching, you gave a really good framework. Like people got that confidential, that feeling safe, that trust, right? Has to be that's paramount. That's foundational. And then you said, ask a lot of questions and challenge people. I would caution people. And I think you're 100% right. Where I have fallen into the trap before is I ask the questions. And then if you have to give time for uncomfortable silence.
Yes. Because people are processing.
Yeah.
It's not like, how was your day? Even if you ask somebody, how was your day? And they say, great, you can look at them and say, what does great look like in your world? And then they've got to think about it for a moment in that way. But you are so spot on with that, Mike, that you've got to give space for that awkward silence. And it does feel awkward. And you don't sit there and look at them, or stand there and look at them while you're waiting for their answer. You just kind of give them space to reflect and to think. And you'll be amazed at the answers you'll get.
Silence is powerful, man. And it is. It's just ask the question, give them the chance to process it so that you're not responding to your own question.
Yes.
Because so often too, that was what I was going to say. I was going to fall in that trap is I'll ask the question and there's that awkward silence. So I'll say, well, is it something like this? And they'll go, oh yeah.
Yeah. Now Michael, leave me alone.
Yeah. Now, right. And so they'll agree with you versus like, give it enough space that it forces the answer from the person you're talking to and you're coaching. I like that you said, hey, got to have tangible steps and an action plan. As far as the gardener piece, I really like this analogy, and I like it because like the growing and the cultivating and that all certainly makes sense. The pruning piece is the piece I don't think we do enough as leaders, because like you were saying, hey, you have to cut back to grow forward. That was I don't know if you have that quoted somewhere, but you're for sure. I'm going to give that to you as a quote. Like you got to cut back to grow forward, because as leaders, we're constantly just worried about compounding more stuff. We'll throw more on. Yep. Throw it on the backpack. We're headed this direction. We just keep adding more stuff on. And the reality is sometimes you have to shed that other stuff to be lighter and grow and move and head further down the path. I absolutely, Jones, think that is a really powerful just piece of the conversation from today. And I love it, man. We're coming up on, I know with respect for your time, we're coming up on an hour already. This could be like a Joe Rogan style podcast. I'd hang out with you for 3 or 4 hours, but I don't have the time and I know you don't. So.
No, you're kind.
A couple of quick questions. One, I'll ask you for some final thoughts, but one I do want to get to, because one of your books is titled, where is it? I have it written down here. was it Juggling Elephants.
Yep.
How do you come up with that title?
Yeah,
Juggling
sure.
Elephants.
Todd Music, my co-author, and I came up with the idea of managing your work like a circus based on an epiphany he had one day. He really said it out of anger. He says, "Am I supposed to run around like my life's some kind of circus?" And I went, "Huh, hold the phone. What would that look like?" And so we started getting excited about that principle, and we started applying those practices in our life, and that eventually became the book Juggling Elephants. Now, where Juggling Elephants came from is the idea that when you're trying to get it all done, it's heavy. It feels like something's going to crash down on you, and so we knew we wanted juggling, but we never really thought about the word elephants. And then I was walking through Todd's house one day because we were really struggling with what are we going to title this, juggling. And I walked by and I went, "Your wife collects elephants. Let's call it Juggling Elephants." And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Why did I have to walk through your house to come up with that idea?" But it's that mindset that we think we can get it all done. We're trying to juggle elephants, which is impossible. So we need to have a system to better use our time. And we believe the circus offers that.
That's fun. And I would encourage everybody, as we're coming to the tail end here, check out Jones's website. I'll put it up here again. It's jonesloflin.com. So it's JONESLOFLIN.com. You got links to your books. You got links to be able to book you to speak and connect your products. You've got a bunch of other resources there, but you've got Focused as a Bee is the latest work.
Absolutely.
Always growing, Juggling Elephants, getting to it. I laughed because I don't know if you've seen the memes right now. With Chit. Have you seen Chit online? His little office, kind of a goofy dude. His
I will
name
have
is
to look that up. Chit, CHIT?
It takes the right note. CHIT. So
Okay.
It's a guy named Jay Rinshaw. He's a comic, and he does this little deal, but he'll always be like, okay, well, in business, right? He's doing these off the wall things, and he'll go, well, back to it then. Get into it. And so when I saw the name of the book, I thought that was what crossed my mind. I was like, it's, currently trending in pop culture. So I found it humorous.
That is hilarious.
So again, check out Jones's website, jonesloflin.com. You can certainly connect with him on LinkedIn. I would encourage you to. Jones, like I said, I can't thank you enough for spending the time with me today and sharing all the wisdom that you have. And, I look forward to listening again and recapping it, putting it, and I'll mention this to everybody. I put out a blog or two each week based on the shows, based on the interviews that I have, as well as shorts and some other stuff. But I would encourage you to check out, besides checking out Jones's websites, check out mine. I'll give you some links to those at the end. So Jones, any final thoughts to take us out for the afternoon, sir?
We've talked a lot about quotes. We've quoted other people today.
Yes.
One of my favorite quotes that keeps me focused and moving forward is by that motivational speaker Zig Ziglar back in the 80s, before some of your listeners were born. And he has a quote that says, "Go as far as you can see by faith, and when you get there, you can see farther." And I think for your listeners, anybody in leadership, any of us as human beings, what holds us back is we want to know the complete picture. And what Zig reminds us of is, what's that next step? And we all have a next step we can take, whether it's a conversation, a new routine we can start, or just something to explore. We all have a next step. And when we take that next step, then we can see what's there that tells us what the next step should be. So that's what I would leave your listeners with today.
Love it, man. Absolutely love it. Thank you again. If you would hang out for just one moment, I'm going to take us out. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring us to to the end of another amazing episode of the Leadership Toolkit. Man, what just a wealth of knowledge. I get excited on a lot of these shows to go back through and recap the stuff, because sometimes it's like I'm hearing it again for the first time. I hear a different perspective. I go, oh man, this is really good. I mean, and I've got so much good stuff anyway. So I would encourage you to, if you've listened to the show, go back and always, re-listen to it. Most importantly, if we're talking about growing people besides ourselves, and certainly do me a favor. One of the ways that the show grows, throw some thumbs up on it, share the show, whatever social media platform or whatever podcast platform you might be listening on, that triggers the algorithm and it helps the show get out there to more people. But most importantly, if you know somebody that would grow from this show, share it with them directly.
Absolutely.
Just say, hey man, you got to listen to this. You got to hear this conversation that Jones had with Mike. It's phenomenal. So I would encourage you to check that out. And then, like I said, I haven't said this enough on the show. I write a couple of blogs each week. One of them is on my website, MikePhillipsSpeaks.com. You can go out there and check that out. Also, I have leadtheteam.net, and you can Google the Leadership Toolkit. So besides, if you like to consume your learning in more ways than just a video or audio podcast, I've got lots of other stuff that will stem from the show. So I appreciate you all so much. I thank you for your time. And until we speak next, I'll see you next week. Stay great. Talk soon, everybody.